Dave is a UK hip-hop artist who has started to garner quite a bit of attention, a bit of success. Last year he had a #1 single and it was one of the biggest songs in the UK for the year. Now personally I've not really been into what I've heard from Dave so far. Funky Friday I didn't like at all. Like I really couldn't stand that song. And my expectations going into this were kind of low, just based on a few songs I have heard from him, not really being big into him. UK hip hop right now though is booming actually. Like a lot of UK rap artists have had albums out this year already. There was that Fredo album, which I didn't like, to be honest. There was a Gigs album that came out recently. I haven't listened to that yet. Maybe I'll give it a chance. And also the Little Sims album, which I did review recently. Go watch that review if you haven't. But more importantly, go listen to that album if you haven't already, man. Little Sims killed it on that album. And I feel like the trend's only going to continue to grow because obviously we've had so many major successful artists out of this scene, like recently, with obviously Stormzy being the biggest guy who had major success and is probably going to continue to be successful and be the front runner of UK hip hop. Dave is certainly up there and can easily become the biggest guy because he's had so much success already. And this new album has garnered a lot of attention from critics. I've seen a lot of buzz, seen a lot of praise for it. And honestly, just on the surface, looking into this album, it is quite impressive. I mean, the idea of it is that he's in a therapy session and Dave is basically just unloading everything that's gone on in his life, or all of his thoughts, all of his mental problems and like emotional issues. And I commend it. I commend this attitude of bringing this to the forefront for an entire album. And the execution though, I think that's where this album falters for me, because this therapy session idea is impressive, but I just don't really feel like it gets taken to the level that it needs to be a fully realized idea for the whole album. It just kind of comes in every so often where this guy will just be like, you know, talking to Dave, but then it might lead into a song that really has nothing to do with this concept at all, or the lyrics in the song just don't really match to what it's supposed to be. I do think the problem lies in Dave himself. I mean, his lyrics aren't particularly that great in my opinion, and the themes of the songs have deep subject matter, but when you kind of dig into what he's saying, like bar for bar or line for line, they just don't really connect very well. His rhyming throughout is very basic to me. A lot of the time he'll come out with these lines like, you know, whatever, forever, together. Like just really basic rhyme schemes that all end in the same thing. So it's not even like rhyming at all. It's just the same word being used at the end of every line. And honestly, this is like rap class 101. Like these are like the rhymes you would come out with when you're first getting into rap. You're in the early days, you're maybe just laying out bars, just kind of trying to piece together like these songs, and you're just thinking of how to like structure your tracks, and it just really shows like the youthfulness of Dave at the moment. I mean, he's only 20, so I've got to give him the benefit of the doubt here, because like these songs aren't like terribly rapped or anything like that, but it just kind of shows his age and how he isn't quite at that point yet of putting together more complex rhyme schemes and complex patterns. And that's fine, like that is honestly fine. It's okay that he's, you know, a young artist who is still sort of finding his feet, but I just think for an album with a concept as ambitious as this, I just kind of think it's important to lay these things down and get them ironed out. Because honestly, sonically, I think these tracks are fine. Like the first few tracks sound good. I think they're produced well. He's rapping pretty decently over these beats, but it's just these lines that pop out every so often that make me roll my eyes and wonder, where is all this critical acclaim coming from? Like, this isn't really that impressive of an album. Lines like, you ever want to fall asleep because you don't want to be awake? Bruh, that's deep. That is, bruh, deep. Friends of enemies are enemies, and enemies of enemies are friends. You think my work is art and I think you're a work of art. That was a legit line that came out of this album, and And tracks like Disaster just might be one of the worst in terms of storytelling. So I've said that's an impressive aspect of this album, but he's basically just like talking about meeting up with Jay Huss and how they met at Santander, and like, you know, the entire story is just pointless. Like I just couldn't get with it at all. And there's this one line on the song which I read so many times trying to figure out what it meant, but I still don't know. So I'm just going to lay it out here and hope that someone in the comments can tell me what this is, because I just don't know. Man tried to live this, never knew he had a clitoris. I don't know what that line is for. Like, he follows it up with something else as well. And again, it's just one of those things that just doesn't link up very well. Like, so many lines just get thrown out there, then the next line is completely different, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing out on certain things. Maybe there's a bit of slang occasionally that I'm just not quite getting, because obviously I'm not like a Londoner, and this is quite heavy London centric, because he does talk about like crime in London and how, like, you know, black people are being profiled in London. Like there's some really heavy topics that I'm just so impressed with, that he's so young and he's touching on these. And previous singles that he put out just had nothing like about these kind of topics, like Black, for example, the song Black. Like, a song like that to me just shows how impressive he can be. Like, those kind of lyrics talking about that kind of subject matter, I gotta praise him. It's really impressive to listen to, but it's just not consistent throughout. Track Leslie, the storytelling on this track again is so vivid. Like, he's talking about how, like, you know, she's been under abuse, and then the last line of his part, because it does have a featured singer on here, that like the last line he leaves off with is really quite heavy. It's just a shame that this very song is then followed up by Voices, which is pretty basic, talking about like voices in my head and stuff like that. But the worst part is it just sounds like some really generic like dancehall UK rap that's been popular quite recently. You get it in a lot of like chart songs. I feel like J Hus was a part of like popularizing it, that kind of like African blend. Then that very track is followed up by Voices, which is this really basic lyrical arc about like voices in my head, you know, that kind of thing. But the worst part about it is the sound of the song. It's just some really generic dancehall UK rap, which has been pretty popular recently. You hear a lot of songs. That Barking song was popular for a while in the charts. And I don't know, I'm just not really a fan of this sound. It sounds really kind of generic at the moment. It has like a vibe to it, but I'm just not really feeling it. It really doesn't match the tone of the album. It just sounds like something that he's trying to get radio play for. And again, some of the lyrics in this track are so cringy. I can't believe these were written down and rapped. Like, they are really quite bad. I know Heartbreak well, and I got her on speed dial. Come on, man. Heartache is my G, I can get her on FaceTime. Like, it's just such a basic way of like approaching, like, you know, people that have done you wrong and like how they've affected you. I just feel like you could write those lines so much better. And there's one point where he says FIFA ting. FIFA ting? FIFA ting? But yeah, like, this album, man, it has so many good qualities about it. I appreciate the ambition, but it's the lyrics themselves that really drag it down most of the time. Aside from a few tracks that I did mention, Leslie being a big highlight on the lyrical front. But really, other than that, I'm just not really that impressed with it overall. All the pieces are there to like build up something great, but it just kind of falls apart, to be honest. It just doesn't reach the point where it could have. And it's a bit of a shame, it's a bit of a letdown, because I do think, again, this is a lot better than I anticipated it to be, but it's still pretty average for an album. I'm going to go 5 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts on this album, if you've listened to it, if you prefer it a lot more to me. I know it's getting a lot of buzz right now, so I'm assuming the like to dislike ratio on this one's going to be pretty mad. But if you do have any thoughts, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye. FIFA ting.